Welcome back, everybody, to the X Factor Safety Podcast live stream. We are streaming live all your social media platforms: Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Periscope. Without further ado, let me introduce who our special guest is today. I have the one, the only Phil Rizzo. Mr. Phil, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Pedro. I'm doing great.
Good. So before we dive into our discussion today, I want everybody to know who Phil Rizzo is. What do you do? Where you come from? Give a little background.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for number one. Thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be on your show. Um, I am the principal and the owner of Rizzo's Protective Group. We are a high-risk security consulting firm. We're headquartered out of Akron, Ohio, which is a little bit south of Cleveland, and we also have an office in the Bronx, New York. What we do is we specialize in training on the corporate level. We have a couple modules of training that we focus on. For example, active shooter risk mitigation, whereby we'll come into your company, no matter what size. It could be the smallest mom and pop location or the largest corporation in the world. And we've trained at Uber. So we've been in their facility to train them on how to increase their survivability rate during an active shooter event. And we also train on de-escalation of aggression and something we like to call tactical termination, whereby we work directly, Pedro, with the HR department, HR professionals, where we train their staff, we train their people to know how to terminate an individual, terminate an employee with what we call TACT, TACT, and the letters of that stand for a specific behavior. So that's what we do on a daily basis. Our goal is to protect people from hurt, harm, or danger, and to try our best to empower people, educate people so that they know what to do. God forbid they ever have to react.
Nice. No, and that is what our discussion is about today. The active shooter and workplace violence. You brought up a good point. A lot of times, HR is tasked with that. Having to let go of people for X amount of reasons. Um, Job performance. Maybe that might be and play a part in it. Maybe the company's downsizing and might not end up needing that individual. So what are some of the tips you can give to people out there, HR professionals, safety professionals that are, playing both roles on how to tactfully, I don't want to say let go of somebody, but, talk to somebody when you're transitioning into the layoff or the let go?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an excellent question. The most important thing I would say to anyone, not only to HR professionals, but to anyone who is charged with a delicate situation like having to let someone go, terminate them from the employment, you have to do it with a humanness about you. You have to employ empathy. You have to employ, you have to put, Pedro, you have to put yourself in their shoes. They might not have been the best employee for whatever reason. Maybe maybe they maybe they earned their discharge. Maybe they were late constantly. Maybe they had attendance problems. Whatever the reason may be, at the end of the day, they're a human being. They most likely have a mortgage. Maybe they have children that they have to, take care of, a wife, whatever, husband. And you have to talk to people really the way you would like to be spoken to. I think the golden rule is applicable in every area, security especially. You treat people the way you want to be treated as best you can. And I think that's putting the football on the tee to start you down the road of of increasing your chances of having a good outcome. You know, the better you treat somebody, the better the possible outcome would be.
Nice, nice. And again, you got to treat people with the respect that you would want,
Yeah,
and again, it boils down to bringing back that human factor,
yeah,
back in human resources, and even on the safety side, bringing it back to, hey, this person has a life outside of work. This
yeah,
person has a family outside of work. So let's
absolutely.
take that into consideration before, um, before we make any judgments.
Yeah.
What is one of the worst, I guess, worst things that you've come across in regards to workplace violence or active shooter?
Well, for workplace violence, my company has been called in where we have armed security specialists who actually we go to the location, and in the event that the HR professional feels that we need to be in the room when they do the actual termination, we'll go into the room with the HR professional to provide protect, support, and backup in the event that anybody wants to express anger or hostility.
Hmm.
I we've had situations where we've had to escort people out, and thank goodness our security specialists are armed, and they're trained to use their firearms. um, but we try to train people so that these events don't take place. We're all about prevention. If,
Right.
like they say, even in the safety industry, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Anything you can do to stay out of court with some type of legal action, that's a good thing, because it's expensive to be in court. I mean, and you don't want to do that with your company. So if you can
Right.
avoid that, that's an important thing. I mean, we've seen a lot. We try to encourage our security specialists, only as a last resort do they use their firearm to defend or protect.
Hmm.
Um, but thankfully, we haven't, knock on wood, we haven't had to do anything like that. But there have been times, Pedro, when individuals get very upset, very agitated, and we've had to restrain people. We've had
Wow.
we've had to advise them that if they continue in this line of behavior, that we will take them out of the room, and that's always physically. It's always against their will, and you know people people don't like that.
Of course, of course. Who doesn't who likes being taken out of a room or taken out of, off the premises forcefully?
Yeah,
Nobody, nobody.
no, that's
And you brought up, I was following you on LinkedIn, and the question, what facet of the company is meant to deal with your workplace violence? Is it HR? Is it safety? Is it risk management? Is it all of them?
uh, yeah. To follow up on that poll that I put out, the the majority of the people responded that HR was responsible for the workplace violence mitigation aspect. But it was a mix. It was, I think, each section, HR, security, risk management. I think each little component had a response. So it's across the board, mixed, but I think HR seems to be the area that has the most responsibility for workplace violence. And whoever has the responsibility is serious, because we're talking life or death here.
Right.
You've seen in the news, you've seen situations where people come back to facilities with firearms, and they kill people. You see it all the time. It's way too much in our
Mhm.
news feed.
No, and it was a great question, and I know I commented on it. I said safety, I was obviously being a safety professional, but
Yeah,
it takes a little bit of everybody to coordinate that. And would you suggest like having a workplace violence or active shooter like brigade or team in
yeah.
for those types of scenarios that might come about?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and yes, I would. I would suggest that the corporate entity somehow they have a committee. You know, there's a safety committee, there's a security committee. There should be as much conversation about these topics as possible is the best course of action to take. I mean, um, sometimes we can get into a situation where we talk and talk and talk, but we have to run drills, we have to practice, and so yeah, there should be a committee that focuses, on safety, on security, on risk mitigation.
Hmm.
The more inclusive that everyone, the more of an active role that everyone takes, the better it can only be. So
Right.
um, I think that's an excellent, excellent question, and excellent idea. And I would recommend that as a high risk security consultant, the more committees you have, the more time you focus on what can happen, the better your chances are of mitigating it before it happens. Because Pedro, in safety, and security, the best time to prepare for an emergency, is before, not during nor after.
Right. Right. No, and then we're gonna read some of the comments. Sam Goodman, make the golden rule cool again. Love it. Yes. Again, treat people the way you want to be treated. That's point blank. Thank you, Sam, for tuning in. LinkedIn user. It just tells me that you're LinkedIn. Love what you are saying, guys. Greatly appreciate whoever you are. Please let me know. And again, send in your comments, your questions, whatever you might want to ask in regards to workplace violence,
Yeah,
active
absolutely.
shooter, again, substance abuse in the workplace. I'm on a construction site,
Mhm.
and I've been in construction for a while, and a lot of times you get individuals that come through. They ever so often um, are using or have a drinking problem. So what are some of the telltale signs that maybe you've encountered to kind of counteract that?
Well, with like drug-free safety training or
Hmm.
drug-free awareness training, you know, in security and in safety, because they overlap one another a lot.
Right.
In security, you can tell. Actually, those things are called tells. Like when a police officer would walk up to your car, and if you move really fast, those are called furtive movements. So if you make a quick move really quick, then he or she is going to respond to you. So I mean, common sense things like for drugs in the workplace, uh, impaired performance, impaired cognition, uh, maybe slurred speech, maybe a lack of ability to perform the job skills or the tasks, um, maybe an aggressive behavior or an argumentative behavior. If the foreman comes up and he's talking to the team about a safety talk ahead of time or something like that, or what the do's and don'ts are of the particular site, if somebody's under the influence, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb because most of the rest of the guys aren't. They want
Right.
to do
Right.
their job, they want to be safe, they want to get home to their wife and kids at the end of a long hot shift. So I mean, um being in construction, being in industries like that, and being under the influence, that's a tremendous risk, um because like we say in security, you can only get killed once. So you know
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. And again, inside, again, on the construction field, any kind of oil field work where you're out of town all the time,
Yeah.
You know, you go out after work, you want to relax, kind of decompress. You know, you have one or two beers, but some people, turn to drugs. They go and get high, or they get high before work. And 9 times out of 10, if you come to work under the influence or inebriated, you're not the one that's going to end up getting hurt. It's usually somebody else. You end up hurting somebody else,
Yeah.
being under the influence, which is such a tragedy. And it's how to tell when somebody is under the influence. Telltale signs, like you said, the slurred speech, the impairment,
Yeah.
um, the different behavior that they have.
Sure.
And what I like to do in the morning time is when everybody comes in. Now, granted, COVID has kind of put a damper on this,
Mhm.
but I still can tell, people, how they are. So when they come in, I like to, try to shake their hand or get close to somebody, just so that way I can, you
Sure.
know, see if I smell alcohol on the breath, or see if
Absolutely.
I end up, see if I smell marijuana or whatnot. And,
Yeah.
and people are probably looking and saying, how do you know what marijuana smells like? Well, you have to know what it smells like in order to identify it. So that way you can, you know, mitigate it, eliminate it from your job site.
Sure. I mean,
Um,
that's a great point. Those types of drugs, they give off smells. I mean, if a person uses methamphetamines, whether they like it or not, they give off an odor. The body gives off an odor when it's under the influence of certain illegal drugs.
mhm,
Uh, whether that's through our perspiration, whether it's through our breath, uh, so I mean, there are telltale signs that a person is doing something that, like you said, it can jeopardize someone else's safety, which is really unfair. Because if you're working on the line and you're working really hard, and somebody else isn't pulling their weight, and they're putting your life and limbs at
mhm.
jeopardy, that's unfair. There really is. That's selfish.
Yeah, it really is. And again, there's uh, coming up through the ranks, you see all types of stuff. When you're on turnarounds, and you have to get drug tested randomly
Yeah.
to be at these chemical plants and some of these construction sites, and they pull up. Uh, and pop up, hey, we're having a drug test. 10% of the workforce has to get tested.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we start heading toward the Porta Johns, and you see a beeline of people going to their cars. They're like, nope, not me, not today.
Right.
So you know, it's a very, very important subject to touch on. And I picked it because, I've seen it in the workplace,
Mhm.
talking about the active shooter in the workplace violence, that has, started to come about and been, a topic now. There's a lot of people that are stressed out there that are very stressed out. They have
Yeah.
different agendas than what they should. And maybe they did get let go, maybe they did get laid off or furloughed, and they got a shitload of stuff that's piling on top of them, and they just want to come, let it rain on somebody else's,
Yeah.
party. And it's
You know,
so
I
go
I
ahead.
in security, we had a security site one time in rural Pennsylvania. It was for an electric company that was they were doing a lot of line work and repairing some lines that actually they were replacing the telephone poles with these newfangled octagon telephone poles that they're wind resistant, like hurricane resistant. So they were replacing these telephone poles, and we had a situation where when the OSHA guy showed up and it required a drug test for everybody on site, our guards there that we had at the site, they reported that there were people who were interested in purchasing urine so that they didn't have to take the urine test. I mean, that to me was nuts. So, but that,
Yeah.
I guess that's a fact of life, that there's some people that are dirty and they have to test clean, and that's one of the things they might revert to is purchasing, you know, test product so that they don't.
Hmm.
But to your point, there's a lot of stress. COVID has added a lot of stress to society that was already stressed out, Pedro. I mean, um, the coping skills of some people just aren't where they should be, you know.
Right.
So you got to take into consideration. I know we do when we show up at a site and there's an employee that's troublesome. We're trained. My people are trained to listen. That's their ability to talk, their ability to communicate, their ability to build rapport with someone. That's a far bigger weapon than any 9 millimeter that anybody could have on their hip. You know,
Right.
and you got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to communicate, empathize, put yourself in their shoes, and try to build rapport and talk them down from wherever
Hmm.
they are. You know.
No, and it, and you said the word empathize.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself in their shoes and be empathetic to the situation. On a construction site, and I have recently been, preaching this to be empathetic because you don't know what somebody else is going through. You don't know what's on their mind, and you kind of want to switch that around and see, hey, you know what if that was me? How would I want to be treated?
Yeah.
And get that down to a normal level. And again, if you have somebody that's irate, that's pissed off, they're screaming, trying to reason with somebody who's mad, who has stuff that's on their mind. You talk to them, not yelling at them, not saying, hey, I'm gonna go call the cops on you, I'm gonna get our security guard,
Yeah.
but you try to reason with them to a point of understanding what they're going through.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. That's exactly right. I mean, in the de-escalation of aggression process, um, you have to identify with the person who's in a crisis. You have to try to reduce their stress level. You can't go there and pour gasoline on an already hot situation. You introduce yourself by your name. Hi, my name's Phil. You have to listen to what they're saying. Um, a big thing in preventing a store from being robbed, and this is what we train our guards to do, is say hello, greet the people who come into the store. Good morning,
mm,
how are you? Good morning, ma'am, nice to see you. When you talk to somebody when they enter your store, or when you talk to somebody when they're in crisis and talk to them call them by their first name, once you learn what their first name is, that automatically will take them down a little bit in their level of anxiety. When you
mm,
personalize it and talk to them like they're a human being, they'll have a chance at starting to feel more like a human being. But if you stand there and you got your hands folded across your chest, and you're looking at your watch, and you're breathing out like, making all these signs and symptoms that you really don't want to listen to them, you're going to add fuel to the fire, and it's not going to be good.
yeah.
You have to pay attention, and you have to be clear in what you're trying to accomplish. And a big thing I learned is you got to check your ego. If ego gets in the way, that's going to be a problem. I mean, what you want to do in a situation like that is you want it to end peacefully. So it doesn't matter if they call you names, if they insult you. You gotta leave all that stuff, behind you. Sticks and stones can break our bones, but names will never hurt us. That's what our mothers always taught us.
Right.
So I mean, it you got to use this.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And before I go on, I'm gonna touch on some of these comments that are coming through.
Absolutely.
Tony, great topics, guys. Greatly appreciate it, Tony, my man. Tim Keaton, thank you for tuning in, brother. Greatly appreciate it. Hope you like you in the Tonawanda weather. He says another great subject. And again, LinkedIn user, let me know who you are. Says ditto. Probably the Tony. Jamal, hey, speak on it. Yes, sir, we are. That's what we're trying to do. Betty Stout. I've seen guys carry flasks of clean urine with them at all times, so they're ready for random drug tests.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been subjected to that as well. I've seen it firsthand. You stay at the ready because you're under the influence, or you're not going to pass that random when it does come about, and you carry those small little flies.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but so what? And a hypothetical situation, and I say hypothetical because I don't want anybody to think that violence is the answer. But
Right.
you get a supervisor that's in your face. He's, you're not meeting your numbers. You're not, doing what you're supposed to be doing. We're having a bad Q3. He's in your face. He's telling you you're a piece of shit and you need to, start, getting your shit together, or guess what? You're going to get fired. And, he's in your face. What do you do? What advice would you give somebody to do in that situation?
Well, I can only talk, Pedro, about what I personally would do and what I've had to do in the past. Um, when people get in your face, you can't take it personal, and it takes training because our natural instinct is to want to hit them with a sack of doorknobs. You know what I mean? You
Give him the 2 piece and a biscuit. I know
there
I
you
had put
go.
that. Yeah, the
That,
two
that
piece and the
made me
biscuit.
laugh when you told me when you did that on that post, man. That
Yeah,
was priceless. So I mean, it takes training, just like you got to train to be a boxer, you got to train to be a doctor, you got to train to be a lawyer. You got to train to be able to deflect and diminish the verbal attacks from people. They'll get in your face. A person will get in your face and they'll want to challenge you. They'll want to try you. They'll want to see how you respond. They might just want to exert their control or power over you. You got to be smarter. From the minute your feet hit the floor in the morning when you get out of bed, it's all risk mitigation. You got to try to get back home safe and sound the same way you left. So you always got to be smarter than the person who's trying to take something from you. And you never want to corner a rat. If you're in your garage, God forbid, and you got a possum or a rat in your garage or something, you never want to corner that rat because that rat will fight to the death if you corner it. You know what I mean?
right, right,
So you gotta try to have ice water running through your veins because people will test you and people will try you, but you got to be smarter than they because with workplace violence and stuff like that, if you put hands on somebody, that's a simple battery. That's assault. I mean, the definition of battery is in most states the application of force from one person to another, the unlawful application. So I mean, you put hands on somebody, or if something goes to hats and bats and you start fighting, you're looking at a jail time, or
right,
or at least uh, a charge. So you got to psychologize people. People will try you. They'll test you. You have to, uh, you have to think about what's important to you. You know,
right.
when a person in the past has gotten in my face and they've actually while they were speaking they were projectiling spit. Every S and every P was explosive, and I was thinking about my wife. I was thinking, okay, I'm no good to my wife if I'm in prison, so I have to just be I have to take this, defend myself if they start to attack me, but
Hmm.
you have to be a professional. In order to be treated like a professional, you have to act like one. So people will try to tackle you. They'll try to take you down, but you have to be on your toes 24/7 because it's that one instance, Pedro, when you let your guard down, that's that's when you can get in the most trouble.
Right. No, and I firmly believe violence does all it does is beget more violence.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what it's gonna happen. You're in somebody's face, somebody's in your face, and you result to violence. Well, guess what? Now it takes two people to fight. It takes two people, to throw a punch to make it a fight. So again, like you said, use your mind, rise above it, and But again, and again, protect yourself at all times,
oh yeah,
and defend yourself when you need to defend yourself. But again, it's not one of those things to where you go out and you're trying to exert your your authority over somebody or somebody's trying to exert their authority over you. No, we're all on the same playing field here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you strip all the titles away, you strip all, whatever social status you might have, and I'm a man, you're a man, women when they're getting into it, women and women, that's it's just what it is.
Yeah.
But again, it has no place, especially that type of violence, and it causes disruption, it distracts people, especially in high risk tests on a construction site, and then becomes an incident bigger than what that little feud was, and could get really bad.
Yeah. Another easy thing to do to help diffuse a situation is keep your distance. You don't want to be in the kill zone. The kill zone is always going to be about 1.5 feet. When you're dancing with somebody, say like you're dancing with your wife, you're going to be close. That's intimate.
Hmm.
But in a social setting, you want to have distance. And this doesn't have anything to do with COVID-19 or social distancing. This is just common sense. If someone can jab something into your neck, then that's going to be a problem. And
Hmm.
so you want to keep distance. If you're having a disagreement with somebody, you don't zone, and you want to be able to see if they make a move. And
Right.
you know whenever in junior high school when we played basketball, the coach always said, watch the guy's hips. He's gonna, wherever his hips go, that's where he's gonna go. So there's tells when,
Yeah.
like we talked about earlier, there's tells when somebody's getting upset and losing their temper.
Yeah, no, and again, understanding those signs, and again, it takes everybody. So you line managers that get pissed off at your employees for not making their numbers.
Right.
Remember, you at one point in time were an employee just like they were, and probably had and got trained to scream and yell and get in people's face to think that's how people are going to get stuff done, but that's not the case. Times have changed. It's
Yeah.
no longer about, brute force and, hey, I'm going to get in your face, and then you're going to turn around and be the best employee.
Yeah,
Um,
that kills morale.
it
That
kills morale.
kills motivation. I mean, who wants to work for somebody who treats them like that? I mean, I certainly don't. I certainly wouldn't. And I've in the past, I've actually left employment in situations where I was talked to as if I was less than human. Because I've been fortunate, to where I've been able to sustain myself financially in situations like that. Not everybody has that luck, but you know it it comes to mind a situation where someone came in on the job, first day on the job, he didn't know where the office was he needed to report to. He was actually my direct report. He
Mhm.
started swearing at me and calling me names, and I said, you know what? I thought to myself, I don't need this. I don't need this. I'll go back to consulting full time, and that's what I did. You know.
And look, now you're the high risk consultant, securities consultant. And let me go ahead and throw
Yeah.
that on there one more time, so that way, if you need my man Phil's services, there you are, right down at the bottom of the screen. That's where you can reach him at. That's his website.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. Thank you for that.
no, definitely. So, and again, I've been on the receiving end of people getting in your face and people trying to test you, and again, I've given a couple two pieces and biscuits ever so often, but I've learned, and it was when I was younger. But again, you learn, and then being in the military, obviously fighting, and that's a big no. You can get discharged for that.
Sure.
Um, because you got to, hold yourself to not, I wouldn't say a higher standard, but become the bigger person using your intelligence versus your brawn.
Yeah.
You use your brawn when you're at war, when you're on the submarine, when you're doing certain things like that, but you're using your intelligence to mitigate the risk of harming somebody, harming yourself, and eliminating that type of stuff that happens in the workplace. So,
Yeah, brains over brawn in certain situations. Yeah,
oh yeah, of course.
like and like a boxing referee. always says, like when Mills Lane, before two boxers would come together in the middle of the ring, he'd always say, protect yourself at all times. When I tell you to go to your corner, follow my command, stay there until I tell you to come out. But protect yourself at all times. That's the key.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And again, safety professionals that are out there listening, workplace violence is definitely something that you should be training on.
Yeah,
Active shooter is something that you should be training on. And
yeah,
then not necessarily, I mean, yes, you might have a drug abuse policy. Some companies have EAPs for that type of situation when you come across it, but you should be training those key individuals that are part of those teams that we talked about earlier, the risk management team, the safety committee team, on the actual signs, the telltale signs of, what somebody looks like when they're under the influence, what somebody looks like, and under the influence of not, not only um, marijuana, but alcohol,
yeah,
methamphetamines,
yeah.
those types of things, cocaine, all the stuff that is readily available, opioids. That's a
Sure,
big, that's a big one. And
sure.
it's a big epidemic that's going on. And, over the past 10 years, it has um, grown exponentially
Hmm.
to be in the workplace.
That's true. That's true. It's epidemic. In Ohio, um, in one of the counties outside of the county I live in, one of the highest incidents of opioid addiction and opioid death in Stark County and Summit County of Ohio. So, yeah, I mean, like we talked about, though, you gotta train yourself for the telltale signs. You got to be cognizant. You have to be plugged in. You have to walk the floor of the warehouse. You have to walk the construction site and actually be engaging. Hey Pedro, how you doing? Hey Phil, you talk to people. And that's how you gather information. And if you have to have a log book and you got to take notes, take notes. If you can't remember everything, you know, I mean, but these things, workplace violence, they're preventable if we train ahead of time to know what to
Mhm.
look for, because when when a person gets upset, they give off signs and symptoms, uh, their voice starts to get louder, they start tensing up, their breathing becomes shallow. There's all kinds of signals that the human body gives off when somebody's losing control,
Oh
so
yeah.
we got to be trained to look for those things.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and shoot them through, in the comments. If you had any questions for Phil, for myself, in regards to, um, workplace violence, active shooter, drug abuse in the workplace, please send us those comments. We'll be live for, another 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, so, right now, obviously COVID messed up a whole bunch of stuff for everybody.
Yeah.
How did that impact, your consulting?
Yeah, that's a great question. We did majority of our training at the location, physically at the corporate headquarters, physically at the corporate location. And because a lot of companies, they either don't have their full staff or they're all working from home remotely. This COVID thing, it impacted us tremendously. But, and I'll say this, we've been fortunate in the regard in the area that we've been able to shift our in-person training to online virtual training. And we've been able, we still have our doors open, we're doing good. We're actually we have clients that are constantly calling us and keeping us busy. So, knock on wood, it's impacted us, but it hasn't broken us because we shifted quickly to virtual training. And we're doing Zoom trainings. We use a lot Cisco WebEx for our virtual trainings. So the one thing though that we realized is the way to not have active shooter events in schools is don't have the kids in the school. I mean, if they're, you know, if the kids are all at home, then that's going to greatly reduce the incidence of ASEs, of active
Hmm.
shooter events, So
Right.
we're learning as we go, but we've been fortunate that we've been able to shift gears, hit the clutch and keep moving forward.
Nice, nice. And you bring up, I have four daughters,
Mhm.
and luckily they are doing homeschooling, not
Mhm.
homeschooling, that virtual. We opted into the virtual at home online learning, but you know, active shooter inside a school is a scary thing for any parent to go through. How do you prepare teachers and parents for that type of scenario or event that occurs?
Well, we train everybody on three basic principles: evacuate, hide, fight. If an event happens like that in the facility, there's three things you have to do. You have to evacuate if you can evacuate. If the shooter, for example, Pedro, is in the West Campus and you're located in the East Campus of the facility, get
Mhm.
out. Get out, evacuate, run away, live to play another day. There's no shame in running away in a situation like that. Now, if you're locked down in the area where the shooter is, sure, you have to lock down. So the second component is to hide. If you can't evacuate, you hide. And in the process of hiding, you have to try to protect your life. That means you have to shut off your cell phone. If you have real little kids, they're not going to have cell phones. But if, say, you're at a high school or a university setting, if I'm the shooter and I can hear your cell phone going off, whatever notifications you're getting or your ringer or whatever, I can find you, I can locate you, and I can shoot you. So you have to hide and try to keep yourself safe. You have to turn off your cell phone, all your ringers and information. And then last resort, if you can't evacuate and if you can't hide, you have to fight to save your life. So I mean, when we talk to parents, and we talk to parents constantly about this is one of our most popular training programs, and we'll meet with the parents, and we'll sit down with them, and we'll put them through the training, and we'll tell them what they can anticipate. um, the school should have some type of plan in place where the parents are notified, whether it's a reverse 911 call or whether there's some type of notification plan. The school should let the parents know as to what's going on in the campus. Um, but that's a difficult situation no matter what. No parent ever wants to go through anything like that. God forbid it happens to anybody. Um, but sadly, it's become a reality of our existence. So if you plan ahead of time and you train, because if you just have a plan and you sit it on the shelf and it sits in a 3-ring binder and no one ever touches it, it's not going to be any good. You're going to have to train on that plan, and you're going to have to train like it was a real life situation, you know so we try to give the parents as much information as possible to educate them, to empower them and enlighten them, and that way the more they know, like they say, the more you know, the farther you go. So
Right.
that's what we try to do with that.
No, and I like the word that you use, empower. You empower the parents to be proactive and again train just like you would train and expect that the teachers and the faculty of a school, of a university,
Yeah,
even of a workplace, they train. So but you're empowering them to take action, to do something, whether, like you said, whether it's flee,
yeah,
hide or fight.
yeah,
And it takes a certain adrenaline rush. I know me myself, I would end up fighting just because I got four girls at home. I got a wife, and stuff that I have to live for and protect. So, and then if I can protect myself to go home and protect my family, and then when all of it's happening, obviously helping somebody else out, so that way nobody else gets hurt,
yeah,
then that's just me,
yeah.
uh,
Absolutely.
personally.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, you try to help others to evacuate if you can do so safely. That's one thing. You never want to put yourself in the line of fire. Um, you know, if you have to fight, it's best if you can use the swarm technique, whereby multiple people attack the shooter all at once. You
Mhm.
know, and it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes one person has to attack the shooter, whatever the situation can be. It's a very fluid situation always. um, but if you can use the swarm technique where 5 people attack the guy, sure, there's a possibility that somebody might get shot. God forbid. Nobody wants anyone to get hurt. But I'll tell you this, you got a better chance of taking down the shooter if 5 people attack him than if it's one-on-one. When I was growing up, the Bruce Lee movies that we used to watch, the reason why Bruce Lee, I mean, he was a great martial arts pro, don't get me wrong. But in the movies, the reason why he was able to dispatch people so easily was because the guys would come at him one at a time.
Mhm.
If you only got to get rid of one person at a time, that's a lot easier than having to get rid of 5 at a time. And it's the same principle in football. When the defense swarms on the running back and they stop his forward progress, then the referee should blow the whistle.
Right. Right. Some more comments. Matt, looking good, buddy. Thank you, Matt. Greatly appreciate it. He said, also said that's some great information for schools to know. Yeah, that's why we are here. We're here for you, Matt. I know you got little ones that are in school, and again, everybody that's listening, um, it's very important to, and these are very important topics that we're touching on, especially the workplace violence, the active shooter inside the school.
Mhm.
Again, some schools are having in class sessions, in person learning. So again, it's a scary thing, and it's scary to think about, but it's a reality that we have to live with now.
Yeah,
Again, the way the world is, some of the turmoil that's going on around the world, it could be real very quickly. So
yeah,
again, educate yourself, empower yourselves to get educated, to find those things, so that way you can educate the kids and be prepared.
yeah.
Um,
The best thing, like, there's a song by Bob Marley where it says, "Tell the children the truth." However you have to do it to talk to your son or to talk to your daughters, you sit them down. You know how to talk to them,
mhm.
and they listen to daddy. I mean, and sometimes telling the truth is the best way to go to educate. You don't want to sugarcoat things, you don't want to terrify them, you don't want to give them nightmares before an event like this happens. But there's bad people in this world, and the more they know, the farther they'll go. That's one truth that we always share with the people.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, Phil, thank you again for taking the time out to give us some insight on workplace violence, on active shooter, and your experiences. So before we get out of here, if you have any comments, please throw them in the comment section so that way we can read them off. We'll answer any questions. I'll answer any questions.
Yeah.
But let people know where they can reach you at, and I'll throw the website up. But again, let everybody know where they can reach you at. How can they reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Pedro. I'm so grateful to you for your time and for having me on your fantastic show. I'm a definite fan. Um, Anybody, should they have any questions or concerns, they can contact me directly by dialing area code 330-801-0464, or they can email me directly through my corporate email address, which is PRIZZO at rpgltdconsulting.com. So, I mean, uh, I'm open for any questions that they might have. I'll be glad to answer any concerns. If there's something that they want me to elaborate more on, all they have to do is reach out.
Oh, and you can also find Phil on LinkedIn. His headliner up underneath his name is great. It's like 30, you know, different names up underneath there, but he's every single one of those. So again, Phil, greatly appreciate you taking the time out to be on the show. I know it was kind of last minute, but again, it was a good topic to have you on. And again, thank you for taking the time out to be here. Um, so one last question that I ask all my guests, what is your X factor?
My X factor. Um, Well, that that's a good question. Uh, yeah, I hate liver and onions. I mean, that would keep me up at night. But I don't know. I mean, I've
What
never
make
been.
okay, so what makes Phil Rizzo Phil Rizzo?
Uh, Probably honesty, probably sincerity, probably uh, being genuine. You know, I'm a friend to a friend. You know, things like that. That's what makes me me. He's gonna shoot for. You know, I'm loyal, um, honest, hardworking, a family guy. So those are the things that make me me.
Nice, nice. And those are good traits. Again, people reach out to Phil if you have any questions in regards, if you need his services, if you know a company or you're working for a company that might need his services, some training. Again, he's doing the virtual training and for some things you actually have to be there for. But again, in the world we're in now, please reach out to him. He has a lot of knowledge. He's been in the game for a while. I suggest you reach out to him. So, without further ado, again, Phil, thank you for being on the show, my man. Um,
My pleasure, Pedro.
Thank you, sir. So, y'all know where to reach me at. Y'all know what it is. Again, um, ask yourself one question: what's your X factor? Till next time, we'll see you later.